part of efforts to revitalize the Nigerian economy, President Muhammadu Buhari, in his recent Democracy Day speech, emphasized on his administration's strategy to boost the economy. Well, President Buhari stated that his government is committed to address issues, a lot of issues: clearance of seaports, congestion, road leading to the seaports. Also talking about collaboration with private sector to improve productivity and accelerate economic growth. He also spoke on reducing social and economic inequality through social investment programs, education and technology. He promised greater investments in rural economies. Well, let's look at this. If all of this can really be achieved, we have joining us an economist from Abuja, Aliyu Audu, and also Chief Executive Officer of Buhari Assets Limited, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. Let me start from Abuja now. Mr. Audu, taking 100 million people out of poverty, that's for a particular time of like 10 years. Let's look at it. Let's project. How possible do you think this is?
Thank you very much. It is actually very possible to take 100 million people out of poverty in the next 10 years. It was done in Brazil. It took Brazil 3 years to take 50 million people out of poverty through a lot of social intervention programs. Now, it is possible, but do we have the prerequisite to do this? Are we geared up? Do we have the right social investment programs in place? No matter how ambitious the president is, we have to look at our economic team. We have to look at the people managing the economy. Are they also ambitious? What is their past precedence? Since 4 years ago, how many people have been moved from poverty into the middle income class or the high income class? These are the things we should look at. What are the programs on ground that will help to achieve this? So it is possible, but if we are ready to do this, it's another question altogether.
Interesting. Let me take it to CEO Buhari Assets, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. Audu is saying it is possible if things are put right. Mr. Johnson, collaborating with private sector is something we've always talked about to actually help attract more investment and, of course, bring in foreign direct investment into this country. And that's one thing that we really need. How well would you say the next level, that's the agenda, how well would you say we are set to really move Nigeria to that next inclusive growth level?
I think the first thing is that...
Go ahead.
The president and the cabinet will be very critical in the president is about to proceed the cabinet will be very critical in driving the next agenda. I think what we may call a strategic intent, which is that the government is willing or will work towards moving 100 million people out of poverty. Just like my colleague over, I mean, countries have done it. I mean, China did it. China moved 850 million people out of poverty in 30 years. India moved 200 people out in 10 years. So it is possible for Nigeria to move 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years. But the key thing is that this is what will determine that being realized. And I think with appropriate policies, like I mentioned earlier, it is possible. The proposal the petition indicated his strategic intent. It is now the team that he work with that will help him achieve that.
Okay, Abuja, now let's go to, I will try to get a good connection with Mr. Johnson Chukwu before we come back to ask him another question to know his view on this very important topic. But Audu is still in Abuja, standing by. Mr. Audu, let's look at the social investment program instituted by this administration. Many have said that this is a step in the right direction. What do you make of this, and how sustainable is it?
Well, first of all, I think the president's intention is good because I think that's why he was re-elected. His intentions are good. But what vehicle are we using to carry out the social intervention programs? Remember, there was a World Bank report that came out sometime last month or 2 months ago that over 60% Nigeria are poor. Now, if we have a couple of social investment program which is taking place, like giving 5,000 naira to the poor, the Anchors Borrowers program, and a lot of other programs. But you see, they are supposed to be improving or reducing poverty. Now, what we need to do is to be more aggressive with these programs to cover more places. As of last count, it was only being practiced in 19 states. We have about 36 states in Nigeria. What happens to the rest? So more than anything else, more than the president's ambitious desire, we need to have the boots on ground to do this work. And as an economist, when you're talking about taking people off poverty into the middle income class, you are talking about the 5 basic needs of people, which includes shelter, food, clothing, and the rest of them. So these are the ways we have to attack and provide these things for people. And what programs are we putting to provide employment for people? Because that's a very critical source of taking away poverty. So this is where we bring in the CBN. So we have to look at what is the blueprint, what are the programs on ground that is being targeted at taking out people from poverty. It is also forecasted that Nigerian population is going to grow, and we're expected to reach about 400 million and above in 2050, making us the 3rd most populated country in the world. So what are the programs, since our population is growing aggressively, what are the aggressive programs we have in place to forestall unemployment outgrowing the population? So these are the things we have to look at, and we need very, very aggressive economic team that has to have boots on ground running to bring out people from poverty in order to be able to meet up to the 100 million mark the president wants to do for Nigerians in the next 10 years.
Mr. Audu, follow up to that, you just touched on initiatives, policies that will be instituted, maybe by the Central Bank of Nigeria, to drive this aggressive movement when you talk about growing the economy away from oil. Now, what's your assessment? Recently, we heard that some companies would even be blacklisted if they smuggle in products that can be manufactured or produced, provided for in this country. So what do you make of this move by the Apex Bank? Agro process, we know of the Anchor Borrower scheme, we know of a lot of initiatives being introduced just to get the people that inclusive growth that we need. What's your assessment?
Well, they are taking a step towards the right direction because the president recently ordered the blacklisting of and blocking accounts of people that, exporting some goods. Importing some good, that is good, but let's look at what we have to do. We have these programs. The food import bill of our country is over $5 billion yearly. That means we're still seeking majority of our food from abroad: milk, sugar, rice, etc. Now, let's look at other countries. Nigeria produces just 2% of our sugar. Let's look at India. India produces over 50% of their sugar, and they create over 1 million to 2 million indirect jobs by production of sugar. Now, if we are serious about these aggressive policies, that means our policies have to be very aggressive. We have to stop people like Dangote from importing sugar into this country. And that's when we bring about import substitution industrialization. How serious are we about this? It's not enough to say we are going to put import duties, but we should ban people from importing foods that we can locally produce into this country. This, first of all, creates a way for us to sustain ourselves by food and creates employment. If India is creating 1 million to 2 million jobs from production of sugar indirectly, you can imagine if we are to start producing our sugar, how many jobs we are going to create. Let's also look at the textile industry.
Yeah. Mr. Audu, hold your thoughts
Right
on
now,
that textile
the
industry.
Chinese
We're going to
people-
move on from there. I have feeds now from Mr. Johnson Chukwu. Let's just hear his view on all of these issues. Mr. Johnson Chukwu, investing in rural environments, rural economies is something that the president is also saying that they will look out to bring out people from poverty, take people away, let people move on, and inclusive growth. How well do you see this panning out?
I think that's one of the hallmarks of that speech, as far as I'm concerned, because if you look at the structure of the Nigerian economy, you realize that people severe in the rural areas and the urban areas. And it's principally because the cost of evacuating products from the rural areas to the urban, rural dwellers get minimal value for whatever they produce. And if you have improvement in infrastructure up to the rural areas, and actually engage in productive activities. But because of the dearth of infrastructure, a lot of people do not want to stay back in the area. And are unable to extract value for whatever they produce because the cost of transporting those goods to the urban areas is quite exorbitant.
Mr. Johnson Chukwu, we think we'll just try to get across later. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. We sincerely apologize for the audio breakaway. It's been humming and we're not getting real good audio from Mr. Johnson Chukwu. We'll try to reconnect or talk to him some other time on the show. But let me go. Audu, you're still standing by. Let's round off with the textile industry, which you just touched before I told you to hold your thoughts and went to hear what Mr. Johnson Chukwu had to say. Let's round it up on that.
Okay, the textile industry, I'm sure you've heard of the Arewa textile when we were growing up. Now, over 90 out of 110 textile companies we have in Nigeria, only 10 are in production, and they produce based on order. Now, the Chinese has flooded the market with their products. The clothes that you and I wear and our kids wear to school is all Chinese product. Now, if you're letting the Chinese to come and dump their product here, how do you expect 100 textile industries has been killed in the last 10 to 20 years? How do you expect to create employment? How do you expect to make Nigeria sustainable? How do you expect to be aggressive and take us out of poverty? So these are the aggressive policies we need to adopt. We need to get the customs involved. We need to get the police involved. We need to get the CBN involved. The Chinese people have to be banned from bringing in their products into this country, because that way we can be able to grow and support infant industries. There should be a textile fund. There was a textile fund of 17 billion that has been lost. We should create another textile fund to support textile manufacturers so that they can now begin to produce, and Nigeria can become self-sustainable and produce her own clothes. And that applies to other industries, other areas, other industries, especially food. So if we are following these aggressive policies and all agencies of government have all hands on deck, I think we will realize the president's ambition of taking 100 million people out of poverty, because they work in pari passu. The private sector has to work with the government in order to achieve this.
Right.
And one of the greatest ways to achieve this is create employment and increase production.
Mr. Aliyu Audu, an economist from Abuja, thank you very much for your time indeed.